Oh,
Welcome, man.
can
Welcome
you
to the
hear me
panel.
well?
Hello?
Can you hear me well?
Kinda.
All
I mean,
right.
it's a
Can you
little
just
muffled.
wait like 2 minutes maximum? I can still speak, but like I'm getting off the bus in like 2 minutes.
Sure, take your time.
All right. But can you hear me kind of well right now, though?
It's a little bit muffled and the volume is a little bit low.
All right. Wait, let me. How about
Yani,
now?
I can understand what you're saying, but I need to focus a bit.
All right.
First of all, what do I call you?
What? Can you say that again?
What do I call you?
You can call me Junior.
Huh?
Junior.
Junior. Welcome, Junior.
Thanks. Yeah. So the live is called True Islam is False. All right, I'm gonna take one example from your own sources, the Quran. Would you agree that the Quran says that, or I can't remember if it's Quran or Hadith, but I'm pretty sure it's the Quran. Anyways, it says that if it wasn't divinely inspired, it wouldn't have even one error in it.
The Quran says that if it was from anyone other than Allah, you would find in it a lot of contradictions. Is that what you're
Yeah,
referring to?
yeah.
Okay.
So do you accept that?
Yeah.
All right. I would say one of many false things in the Quran is that Jesus wasn't crucified. Like the
I think you
Quran says that,
misunderstood that verse. I
right?
think you misunderstood. Yeah, I think you misunderstood that verse. It's saying that if the Quran was from anyone other than Allah, you wouldn't find in it any contradictions, meaning you wouldn't find a verse in the Quran
Well, it
that contradicts
contradicts
with
history.
another verse. You wouldn't find a verse in the Quran that contradicts another verse in the Quran. Not that the Quran wouldn't contradict the Bible. Yeah, we know the Quran contradicts the Bible. Of
Yeah,
course
but
it does.
I'm not saying just like the Bible, like real history. Like the
Really.
Quran claims that, yeah, there are sources outside of the Bible that confirms that Jesus was crucified.
What does the Quran say about the crucifixion of Isa alayhi salam?
Well, that somebody appeared as Jesus to
Not
crucify him.
exactly. Not exactly. It says
Well,
that
kind of.
it says that it appeared to them so. And it appeared to
All
them
right.
that you are crucified. It doesn't specify whether someone was made to look like him or it was an illusion or what happened exactly. It just says it was made to look like it. It was made to look so to them.
Yeah.
So if it was made to look so, if it was made to look like he had been crucified to the people, what will the people say?
Yeah, that they crucified.
That they crucified him.
But
What
the
will
problem,
historical records? What?
but the problem
Just
is, I understand you.
okay.
I understand your argument. But the problem is, like, your Quran, Allah, Muhammad, whatever you want to say, still has the burden of proof to show evidence that it was just made to appear so. So,
Sure,
like,
but regardless,
I mean, let's
do we
say
agree?
like, but let's say I said
Junior,
like came like 700 years. Yeah.
yeah, Junior, just a second, because now that's a different thing. Do we agree that the Quran does not necessarily contradict history, or do we agree to make it clearer that the point that you brought is not an argument against Islam? Because I can simply
It
say
is.
it is. So if you say it
Yeah.
is, you have to prove that.
Yeah. It contradicts
Because when you
like
say,
it contradicts history, and like having an
but if the
answer that,
people
oh,
thought he
it
was
was just made
crucified,
to, but saying it made to appear so, that's not enough. Like if I
that
came,
is enough.
like now I live 1,400 years after Muhammad, and I make a book and I say, oh, by the way, that angel from Allah or whatever, yeah, I just made it to appear so. Oh, Muhammad existed? Oh no, it was just made to appear so. That's ridiculous.
Are you a prophet?
No, but if I told you I was,
Right.
and I
So
said that,
no.
but if I told you I was, like in 2 years' time, I was a prophet and made to appear so, whatever, would you believe me?
Mhm. Then you have to prove. Then the proof that what you're saying is true would be proving that you are a prophet.
All right.
The thing is, first of all, regarding the argument you brought, we understand. I think you understand the point that if the people thought he was crucified, then history is going to say he was crucified
Yeah,
because
but
people are going to
that's
write
not
that
a good
down.
enough. But that's not
Historical
a good enough
records.
answer.
Just a second. Historical records are going to say he was crucified. So that's not really a strong argument against Islam, because when you present that argument, you're dealing with what we believe. Whether you believe that's true or not, that's not the point. The point is you're dealing with what we believe. And we believe, if we believe that no, he was not crucified and that's it, we don't believe that he made it appear so, then yes, you could say there is a contradiction. But because we
Yeah.
believe that it was made to appear so, then you cannot use that argument against us because it doesn't affect us.
Yes,
Now,
you
what
can,
is the
because
proof?
there's like, again, a guy coming like 700
I
years
know,
after
Junior,
the.
I know, I understood that point. I understood that point. I'm finishing. Now, what is the proof that what the Quran is saying here is true? If we prove that the Quran is from God, then what the Quran says is true. That is the proof. But
All
the
right,
question
and
of
and what's the evidence? Okay, no,
we will get to that. But what the main topic was, it was not proving Islam is true. It was prove Islam is false. But what you bring
yeah,
does not prove Islam false. Do you understand the
yeah,
difference?
yeah. I mean, we don't agree, but like, you know, this is just one of many ways to like continue the conversations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can, and we will get to that if you wish. We can talk about proving Islam is the truth.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to make it
because
clear.
like
I just
proving
wanted to
Islam
make it clear that your
false.
argument doesn't really damage us.
I mean, that again, like proving something false is like not always, but many times a subjective thing. Like for example, if I tell you like, oh yeah, the Middle East, it doesn't exist. Like you could show, like, or the moon landing. Do you think the moon landing happened?
Probably. I don't really care.
Probably. All right, but
Don't really
okay,
care.
do you think the Earth is flat?
No.
All right. So would you agree with me in saying that, like you could bring even God himself saying, no, the earth is not flat, and there's some idiot still that will not believe it.
If they saw God saying it, then yes, but I get your point. Continue.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like to me when you're saying, like, oh yeah, no, I don't agree because, it says like the Quran says that it made to appear so. So yeah, then we don't need to think anymore about that. That's how
What I'm
that's how
saying,
you guys
what
seem to us.
what I'm saying is that when you talk about the content of the Quran, whether you like it or not, you have to deal with what we believe. And you are saying, this is the point I'm making, that the argument you brought does not damage us because of our beliefs. You're not dealing right now with this argument when you bring it. You're not dealing with whether our beliefs are true or not. You're dealing with what our beliefs are. There's a difference between the two. But we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. How do we know that this is true? By proving that Islam is the truth. If Islam is the truth, then what the Quran says is true.
So circular reasoning, basically.
That's not circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is saying it's true because this thing says so, and I trust this thing because this thing is true. That's circular
Yeah,
reasoning.
isn't
What we're
isn't that
saying
basically
here,
what you did?
saying that if Islam is the truth, there is a condition. Saying that if Islam is the truth, then what the Quran says is true. That's not circular. If the Bible is true, if Christianity is true, then what the Bible says is correct, all of it. That's not
I mean,
circular.
it depends what you mean by, like, is the Bible true? Because like the Bible is like 66 different books written by over 40 authors in 1,500 years, and like it may sound crazy to you, but where like, for example, when Luke said that Abraham was buried in Shechem or whatever that city is called, that's not true. But that doesn't mean that yeah, just throw the entire Bible in the trash bag.
So you don't accept the entirety of the Bible is true.
Well,
Interesting.
again, I would say define what is the Bible true. I think that the
That all of
Bible's
the
core message.
information in it is correct.
No, I don't believe that. I think
Do you
that the
believe it's
Bible's
inspired?
yes, I believe it's inspired by God, but there's a difference. Like saying that the Bible's message is true is not the same as saying every single thing in the Bible is true. Like when we say that that we believe the Bible's from God, we don't believe it in the same way as you Muslims. We believe that it's divinely inspired, but it's still written by humans.
So did God inspire errors?
Well, no, that would be the human, like I would say that when I say that the Bible is divinely inspired, it's like subtle ways that can be useful for later generations that we didn't like that those people writing didn't even know about. For example, in Isaiah 53, there's a message about a suffering servant, and we believe it's the forecoming of Jesus. But like them in Israel, Holy Lands, whatever you want to say it, like they would say like, what does this even mean? You understand?
I understand. I'm just surprised that you believe that a book inspired by God is not entirely
But
correct, that not
well,
everything in it is correct. But regardless,
when we say divinely inspired, we don't believe the same thing.
do you believe
Like,
all of it is divinely inspired? Or just
no,
some of it?
some of it. Like
Interesting.
for example, greetings from Paul. There, like says that like in many letters, greetings from Paul. Do you think that's divinely inspired?
No,
Yeah, me
but I'm
neither.
not a Christian.
Yeah, but would you think it's ridiculous to say that me not thinking greetings from Paul is not divinely inspired? It means that the Bible belongs in the trash bag.
I think that if you believe that there are parts of the Bible that are not divinely inspired, then, but at the same time you do accept some parts of the Bible just like that, I do believe that that's not very logical, because now you're picking and choosing what you accept in the Bible. But regardless, bringing us back to the topic, maybe we can talk
Mm,
about this a bit more later, but
yeah,
bringing us back to the topic of Islam. So we can either continue the topic and say, how can we prove that Islam is the truth? Or you can try
yeah,
bringing another argument if you wish.
yeah. I mean, for me, it's kind of the same. But one thing also, I think that doesn't go in line uh, with Islam and all of human history is that you guys say that we have the Torah and the Injil and whatever, but like none of history like shows that claim. For
What
example, we have the you Muslims often say that, oh, the Bible's corrupted, whatever, but you know the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls says otherwise.
what date do the Dead Sea Scrolls date back to?
I'm pretty sure it's like 2,200 years ago, or maybe it
So
was the
around 200 BC.
yeah.
How many years after Moses is that?
Uh, I don't even know exactly. I would say maybe 1,000.
About 1,000 or more, you could say.
Yeah,
So there's a 1,000-year gap, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, are your earliest prominent manuscripts of the Old Testament.
yeah.
So
The-
there's
And
a
and and
1,000. So
uh,
so there's a 1,000-year gap where we just have little to nothing. So
yeah. I
how
mean
can you say that then history shows the Torah was preserved?
like the Bible, or like any other script, like material doesn't last for like millions of years. So like there's nothing wrong with that.
No, but that's the point you're making. You're saying
Like for
when the
but for
Quran,
but for,
you're saying when Islam, Junior, the claim you made is that when Islam teaches the corruption of the Torah that contradicts history. But then we look at history, we look at what history says, and we find that there's
yeah,
a 1,000-year gap where we just have little to
yeah.
nothing.
But
So how
but
can you
but
make the claim
but
that there's a
but
contradiction when history doesn't say that it was preserved?
but absence of evidence doesn't mean it's false either. Like
So you
for
cannot then.
example, but wait, for example, the city of Troja. Like, have you heard of a Trojan horse? Basically, a trap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for 1,000, not 1,000. Like for hundreds of years, people thought that that city didn't exist, and then like 200 years ago, they discovered that city in like south no west northwest of Turkey. like slightly southwest to
I don't disagree
Istanbul.
with you. I don't disagree
Yeah.
with you that I don't disagree with
So
you that
so
things that we
basically,
have not
like
yet
say,
discovered. One second. I don't disagree with you that things that we have not yet discovered can be discovered in the future. I don't
yeah,
disagree with that. But when you make the claim that the Quran contradicts history by making the claim that the Torah was corrupted, but then we look
yeah,
at history and we don't have enough information historically to say the Torah was not corrupted or that it's the same as what Moses had, you cannot make
mm,
that claim then.
yeah,
You cannot make the claim that it's the same.
but here's the deal. Like, you know, again, absence of evidence doesn't mean like absence of like how the fuck do you say that? Like basically
Absence of
us
evidence is not evidence of absence.
exactly.
Yeah, but that's not related to what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, you guys
It
claim
would be
that
related.
that it, but you guys say that the Torah and like and the Gospels, New Testament, whatever, points to Muhammad. I mean, we got zero evidence of that.
Now that's a different topic.
Well, I mean,
Look,
that was what I was gonna get into,
imagine,
actually.
imagine, listen, let's see what happened 1,000 years ago. Let's say the first crusade, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine in the last 1,000 years, we had nothing about the first crusades. Literally nothing, not a single manuscript that talks about it.
Yeah, I mean
And then
that's
you find a
gonna
manuscript.
happen.
Huh?
That's gonna happen.
No, just a second. So we had not a single manuscript that talks about it for the last 1,000 years. And then I bring you a manuscript that makes the claim that there was a first crusade that happened and talks about it. But when you examine it, it dates back to two years ago, 1,000 years after the event. Would you accept that manuscript?
Wait, can you
Would
say
you
that
accept the
again?
story? If I brought you a manuscript that makes the claim that the first crusade happened,
Yeah.
okay, 1,000 years ago, and you examine the manuscript and it dates back to, let's say, 5 years ago, would you just believe the story? And let's say there was more than one manuscript. Would you just accept the story?
Well, what do you exactly mean by it dates back to 5 years ago?
Meaning the material of the manuscript and the writing on it, the material of the manuscript was made 5 years ago and it was written on 5 years ago.
Yeah.
1,000 years after the event. And for 1,000 years before that, we just have nothing. Not a single thing that mentions any first crusade. Would you accept the story as authentic?
I mean, possibly if there's any other evidence.
There's nothing, just nothing at all.
Like for example, but for example, like with the Torah, like Jews have a like a part of their culture is like somewhat like you Muslims to like repeat the verses day in day out and like remember the verses in their like in sermons. Yeah, that's just a part of it. That's just a part of it.
Yeah.
Like again, like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Septuagint, like yes, they are like the oldest things that we have right now, but it doesn't mean that oh yeah, it's impossible to know if there's
we could discover something older in the future. I agree.
Yeah.
We could discover something older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, but right now, with what we have right now, am I gonna be willing to gamble on my entire hereafter to follow that book when right now we have 1,000-year gap?
Yeah, I will do it.
Why?
Well, because this, like, I would say Christianity has the best evidence of like any worldview other. Like Muhammad saying that he's a prophet with his like, you know, you guys say it's angel bullshit, whatever. I mean, there's not even a witness to this. And he himself, Muhammad himself didn't even believe he was a prophet at first. He got convinced that he was a prophet. Like, if you look at prophets,
back to Islam.
Yeah.
I mean, since you're bringing the topic back to Islam, just hold these thoughts a little bit so we don't have a lot to deal with. And let's deal with the first part of your claim. You said Christianity has the most evidence for it. What is the
Yeah.
evidence for Christianity?
Well, then we have to define Christianity. I would define Christianity as like the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
There's more to it than that, though. Do you believe in the Trinity?
What? Yeah.
Okay, so you
What?
believe Christianity, you believe that Jesus, peace be upon him, died for our sins, that he was resurrected, that he is the Son of God, that he's God, that there's a Trinity, that there's a Holy Spirit who is God.
Yeah.
And the other minor things about Christianity as well.
Yeah.
So what is the evidence for all of this?
Well, where do you want to start?
Wherever you want.
All right, we can
You
take
said
to
that it has the most evidence.
yeah, we can go to the resurrection immediately. So the evidence of the resurrections is mostly like there's some minor things, but mostly it's like all the disciples plus like other followers of Christ getting tortured to death for keeping to claim that that no, we really saw Jesus risen from the dead. And everyone who has half a brain even knows that people don't die for what they like. People die for a lie, but people don't die for what they know to be true. I have to
For
mute
what they
Badr
know
for
to
one
be
second, but
false.
you can keep talking. Yeah, exactly. But you can keep talking, but I have to mute for 1 second.
Let me know when you're back.
Hello?
Hello, welcome back.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
so how do you know that happened with the disciples?
Eyewitness testimony, just as like that's how we know anything from history.
Who is that eyewitness testimony?
Well, there are like Irenaeus, or however you call that guy, was the disciple of John. The Book of Acts, and Paul's letters, whatever. So basically, early Christian sources.
Regarding the church fathers, including Irenaeus,
Yeah.
how do you know these quotations are authentic?
What do you say?
How do you know these quotations are authentic?
These what?
How do you know these sayings that are attributed to them are authentic?
Mhm.
Why do you trust them? Why do you believe that they are authentic?
Well, honestly, just about specifically Irenaeus, I can't tell you because I have barely looked at his work. But for the like, for example, Acts that says that Stephanos and James, like Stephanos, he was stoned to death, and James, he was beheaded. Well, there are like manuscripts about Acts, like the early church talked about these events, like Paul, for example, Peter, and all of that.
Why do you believe the book of Acts is authentic?
Well, because
By the way,
like
just to clarify, when I say authentic, I mean that that what you have today is the same as what existed when it was supposedly written.
oh yeah, manuscripts.
Okay, so you have a manuscript of the entire
No,
book of
not
Acts
a. They're
from...
not a manuscript like a whole book. It's
Sure,
like it's
manuscript.
different. Yeah, it's manuscripts
Okay,
in plural form.
sure. How many do you have from the first century when the disciples were alive?
Uh, well, from the first century when the disciples were alive,
And Paul.
I don't. Well, I don't really know, but I can look it up right now.
Sure. But just to give you the answer real quick, and you can check it yourself, you have 0 from
Yeah,
the first
that's not
century.
true.
That's not true.
That's
Name
not true.
one. Name one.
Well, we're about to check it.
Sure. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
My computer's loading. Just a moment.
Take your time.
My God. What are these manuscript om Osla-gärningarna? It's almost done.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah.
Saifullah opening
It's
a live. I've been opening lives for multiple days now, Ukhti. Yeah.
Yeah, there is P45. It's written about the 2nd century. It's right now in Dublin.
Sure. 1st century.
No, 2nd century.
Yeah, but I asked you if you have anything from the first.
Yeah, we don't need to have it from the first.
Okay, so you don't have anything from the first.
Yeah, but
How much do you have?
it's not needed either.
No problem. So already that's a multiple decades gap. How
Yeah,
much do you have from the
and
second
that's
century?
not a problem in itself. My father was born in 1939. He could tell me stories from when he was a kid that happened like 70 years ago. There's people
Sure.
right now that are like 80. They can't remember what they did as 10-year-olds.
Sure.
So like
We're talking now about oral tradition, but we'll get to that. But right now we're talking about what is
no,
written, because you
but
brought that
like
up.
yeah, but them having something in written form, like in the 2nd century, implies that they copied it from an earlier source that was destroyed because of it's written in papyrus. It doesn't hold for millions of years.
Can you make the assumption? Can you just make the assumption that what you have is the same as what existed in the 1st century?
Yes,
Because you don't know,
the people who
because
wrote
it's
them,
Junior.
because yes, we can, because it's not
Okay.
just one manuscript; it's multiple different who
Right.
says the same thing.
So how much do you have from the 2nd century?
Well, let me look.
Sure.
Hur många manuskript har vi från andra århundradet?
I'll do it with you as well, huh? Here we go.
Yeah, so we have that P45 and then pieces of and then many pieces of manuscripts. Pieces of manuscripts.
Yeah. How many?
Well, hur många bitar av manuskripterna har vi från andra århundradet?
You don't have much from the 2nd century.
30 to 50 small pieces of manuscripts.
Which website
I don't know what.
what.
Well, I'm checking from ChatGPT, so I can tell them to bring the source.
ChatGPT is not the most reliable one, to be honest. ChatGPT gets things wrong all the time.
Well, here's the deal. You can ask ChatGPT to tell you the sources for the information, and I have done on multiple different topics. And when you ask them, they bring the source. Like they bring the source from the internet. It's no different from Googling it.
Yeah, you will find a lot of. You can find ChatGPT making a lot of mistakes by just changing the question.
So then you ask for the source.
Regardless,
there's 30 to 50.
How many verses do they make up?
What do you say?
I want to move it a little bit forward. How many verses?
It says here like 6 to 8 like pages in total.
From the 2nd century.
Yeah.
6 to 8 pages out of the whole New Testament.
No,
that
that's from the bits and pieces.
Yes. So from the 2nd century, even though to be honest, I believe you have way less than that, but we'll grant that. So from the 2nd century, you have 6 to 8 pages of the New Testament, and from the 1st century you have nothing. And the rest comes from after the third.
Because the material
Do you not
doesn't
see a
hold
problem with that?
No, because material doesn't hold for 2000 years. There's no different from, but it is hugely relevant. It's like it's no different from like how do we know like how all of the people in the Holocaust died? Well, we can't because they didn't do an autopsy on every single person that died in the Holocaust. So many scholars say that
I don't think you can say that word here, to be honest. So just to be safe,
I'll just say the H.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
yeah.
in the H,
I get your point. Sorry, just to make this very quickly because I want to go back to talking about Islam. Regarding the number, how many people died in that age, that has nothing to do with my hereafter. So I don't really care. But when talking about something
it is hugely relevant.
Or not, when we talk about something that is according to you, scripture inspired by God, believing in it makes the difference between going to hell and going to paradise, or if that is true, then I'm going to be a bit more strict with the history of that thing. If we had, imagine if the Muslims had nothing of the Quran, not a single manuscript of the Quran from the 1st century Hijri, after the Prophet's migration to Medina, alayhi salatu wassalam, and then from the other 100 years, from the 2nd century after that, we had 6 or 8 pages. We would not be hearing the end of it. And according to the Islamic criteria, the whole thing would be rejected. If we didn't
here's the deal: the full Quran, I'm pretty sure, was written like 200 years after Muhammad.
No.
Muhammad did not.
Here's the difference.
All right. So when do you think that the Quran was written?
Okay, we have manuscripts of the entirety of the Quran in total that date back to the 1st century Hijri. The 1st century after the Prophet's migration to Medina, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, including manuscripts.
Wait, you said 1st century?
Yes, the 1st century.
1st century.
Yeah, the 1st century after his migration to Medina.
Wait, then you're not using the Gregorian calendar, are you?
No. But when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam migrated to Medina, within the first 100 years of that, after that, we have the entirety of the Quran from them in manuscripts, including manuscripts that date back to the lifetime of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, like the Birmingham manuscript. You cannot say the same for the New Testament.
I don't believe that, but sure. Let's say that is true.
You can check it yourself. Don't take my word for it.
All right, sure. Yeah. Again, I don't believe that, but let's just assume it's true.
Sure.
So what? We can have like a full manuscript of Harry Potter in 1,000 years of time. Doesn't prove anything.
It proves that the manuscript that you do have of Harry Potter is the same. I'm not saying, oh, that proves the Quran is from God. I'm not making that claim. I'm saying that what we have shows that the preservation of the Quran is more provable than the preservation of the Bible, of the New Testament more specifically.
But even if that was true,
when you look at the history of the New Testament, because if you remember, how did this conversation start? I asked you, why do you accept the Book of Acts as reliable, as authentic? And we started going over all of this. When you have a when you have a 1 century gap, and then from the 2nd century you have very, 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 very little, it makes no sense to say, okay, just assume that the Bible is the same as the 1st century. It makes no sense. I'm not going to assume that. I'm not willing to assume that.
But the explanation is, again, that material doesn't hold for thousands of years.
That's not my problem.
Junior,
even with that, with that, Yes, I agree with you. A lot of material doesn't hold on for very long. Still, the point stands. Material doesn't hold on for very long. You don't have what was there in the first century and the second century,
All right.
most of it.
But
You have a
if we use
problem.
your if you use your argument then, so say 10,000 years into the history, do you think you will have the exact? Well, let's just assume the whole Quran manuscript, whatever you want to say. Do you think you will have exactly that in 10,000 years?
Hard to say. Because the
Hard to say.
material of
Come
the
on now.
manuscripts,
Come on now.
because the
Come on.
material of the manuscript, can I answer?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the difference between the manuscripts of the Quran and the manuscripts of the New Testament, the material of the manuscripts of the Quran is in way, way, way better shape. So I
All
can,
right.
in way better
Let's say
shape. So I
100,000
cannot, just a
years.
second, my guy. So I cannot really, I don't have enough knowledge to predict what it will be like in 10,000 years. But let's say, you know what? Let's say we have nothing. Let's say
Yeah.
all the manuscripts disappear.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So
We have something you don't have.
what do you have?
We have something you don't have. And that is an extremely robust and strong oral tradition. And the process of verification of that oral tradition.
But wait,
we'll
when
get
we
to that.
talked about oral tradition
Yes.
in according to the Torah, then you said it was unreliable.
No, I didn't say that. I said
No, you
right now
implied
we're
it.
talking about. I said, if you remember, I said their oral tradition is not very strong, and we will get to that in 2 seconds. I said also, you mentioned oral tradition, we will get to that later, and we're getting to it now. So the manuscripts, we got that. Now, oral tradition. How do we, according to the Islamic criteria, how do we verify whether a text is authentic or not according to the using the oral tradition? Do you know?
Are you talking about the hadiths?
And the Quran as well, both of them.
Tell me.
Because the Quran, we don't just know. Let's keep it to the Quran for now, and the hadith are very similar. The criteria is very similar. The Quran, we don't even count that much on the manuscripts, to be honest with you. It's just something extra, something nice, something extra that we have. It's a nice thing to have. But the main
Well, if you're just keeping it to oral tradition, I'm sorry, that's not reliable at all.
What did I literally just tell you? I said to
you said the manuscripts are an extra.
Junior.
I heard that.
Junior. Look, I know I'm going to say a lot of things that you disagree with. I don't need you to voice out your disagreement every time I say something you disagree with. I'm going to get to that. Okay? So the manuscripts are a nice thing that we have. Now, regarding the oral tradition, how do we know that the Quran that we have today is the same as the Quran recited by the Prophet ﷺ? We have what's called chains of narrators, which means, so when we have a text in general, a text that reaches us that is claimed to be an Islamic text, how do we know this is authentic or not? First, we look at the chain. Is the chain connected? If the chain is not connected, the whole thing falls apart. What does it mean not connected? It means there's a narrator missing, or maybe there are, in the chain it says this narrator narrated from that narrator, but when you look at their biographies, you find that they either didn't live in the same time period, or they lived in the same time period, but they did not meet each other. That's a disconnected chain. The whole thing falls apart. You have to be sure that each and every single narrator in the chain actually met the other, actually spoke to the other. Now, you also have to be sure that each and every single narrator in the chain, we have to know who they are. If someone is an unknown person, majhul, if someone is an unknown person, we don't accept the chain. Now, of course, there is more detail, but I'm just going over I'm a little bit oversimplifying it for the sake of time. If, what's the word? Yes. If there is someone in the chain who had a poor memory when he was reciting the Quran, or when he was transmitting the text, I should say, we don't accept the chain. He needs to have, every narrator in the chain needs to have a very, very good memory. And by very good memory, I don't just mean that, oh, you're good at remembering things. I mean that if you are with your teacher and he narrates to you, let's say 10 or 50 different ahadith, and while he's narrating them, in one of the chains of the 50 ahadith, he flips two narrators, or he leaves out a narrator, or he adds in a narrator, you have to be able to catch that from memory. If you don't catch it, you don't really have that good of a memory. So it's a very, very high standard for memory. You also need to know that every single narrator in the chain is trustworthy and has a good character. If someone is accused of being a liar, we don't accept the chain. If someone is known to not be very practicing and has a not very good character, we don't accept the chain. This is for the chain only. And then once there's other things as well, but like I said, for the sake of time. Now you have, let's say, an authentic chain. You look at the matan, the text itself, the content of the text. It needs to not have any oddities. By oddities, we mean, like, let's say there are 20 different chains of the same text, but in only one of these chains, there's additional wording that is not found in the other 19. That wording that specific wording in the text would not be necessarily accepted. He also needs to not, if we have narrators who are more trustworthy or stronger than the ones in the previous chain, and they contradict each other, that can also be an oddity that we need to look at and consider, and all of these things. Now let's say there is nothing wrong with this one chain. Now we're talking about the Quran. Let's say there is nothing wrong with this one chain. Okay? And let's say it's what is transmitted from that chain is a recitation that is not like what the Quran has today. There is nothing wrong with the chain. We don't accept it. Why? Is it because it's different? No. It's because regarding the transmission of the Quran, we need tawatur. We need mass transmission to accept the text of the Quran. One chain is not mass transmission. One chain is called ahad in the science of hadith, meaning you just have one chain of it. To accept a text, a recitation of the Quran, you need multiple chains, mass transmission, tawatur. So I have all of this.
And you claim that all of it, and you think that all of this has been happening since the first century, or well, your guys' first century.
Naturally, this is something that developed throughout, over the. Sorry, I don't know if I'm using the correct words. Something that developed over the centuries. Besides the texts, how do I explain this? At the time of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, there are the companions. If a companion comes to you and recites to you the Quran, did you learn it from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Yes. The companions, they know each other, they have access to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, etc. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam dies. Then the companions, they're going to have students. And these students are going to learn from them. Now, how do they know that this person learned it from the Prophet ﷺ? From their entourage. Did this person actually meet the Prophet? Did this person actually learn this from the Prophet? Yes. And you find that it's not like you're looking at each person in a vacuum. Other people around them are confirming or denying. And this is how you know, okay, this person met that person, this person did not meet that person. This person, after this age, their memory became worse. This is how you know that. I also wanted to say one thing. Just give me a second to remember it. It's escaping my mind right now. That's escaping my mind. Anyway, so hopefully it's clear what I told you.
Not really. Well, I understand. I understood your reasoning, but I don't really agree.
Whether you agree or not is not really, not disrespect to you, but
yeah,
I think whether you agree or not is not really my concern. What I'm concerned
here's
how it works.
Here's the problem. Like, if you guys claim to have such a good oral tradition, whatever, why did Uthman burn all of the other variants of the Quran and standardize one version?
Beautiful. Do you know exactly what happened during the time of Uthman and what it was that he burned?
Well, it was it didn't say the exact same thing. It had like some variations in like accent and whatever. And well, that's just going off my memory on the hadith, but I'm happy to be corrected.
Sure.
Tell me.
So I will tell you I will tell you, but a little bit before that. Basically, what I was trying to show you is that the oral tradition that we have, in addition to the manuscript tradition, which is already better, undeniably better than the tradition of the New and Old Testament, because unlike you guys, we have something from the 1st century. But in addition to that, the oral tradition that we have is much more robust and much stronger than what the Christians and the Jews have. The Jews, regarding their oral tradition, they don't have this much criteria, this strong of a criteria. The Jews don't say, okay, this person didn't meet that person, disregard the whole thing. They don't have these kinds of things. Now, about the question you asked about Uthman. During the time, here's the entire story. During the time of Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, he would recite the Quran to his companions. And he had scribes who would write down what he said. To name a few, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman himself, he was a scribe, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Thabit ibn Qais, Khalid ibn Sa'id, and many others. Now, they wrote down the Quran. The entirety of the Quran was written down during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, but it was not compiled into one book. After the Prophet's death, ﷺ, during the time of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, there was a battle called the Battle of Yamama between the Muslims and the followers of a false prophet. The Muslims won, but in that battle, many memorizers of the Quran lost their lives. So the Muslims, or the caliph, under the advice of other companions, he decided to compile the Quran into one book and keep it with him, just in case something happens, and at least they will have something in written form. So they compiled the Quran, and the one in charge was Zayd ibn Thabit, a scribe of the Prophet ﷺ, and someone who had the Quran memorized, and someone who learned it directly from the Prophet ﷺ. So he compiled the entire Quran into one book, and some of the criteria to include verses in the compilation was that it had to be proven that the verse was written down in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and there had to be two trustworthy witnesses for that, and it also had to be a verse that is mass memorized. Now, they compiled the whole thing, and there were many companions at the time living who had the entire Quran memorized, like Zayd himself, like Uthman, like Ali, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, like Abu Bakr, like Aisha, many others as well. So they compiled it into one book and they put it in with the Caliph, Abu Bakr. That was less than 3 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? After the death of Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab became Caliph, another companion of the Prophet ﷺ. That compilation was given to him. After his death, that compilation was given to his daughter Hafsa, who was the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. And at that time, Uthman became the Caliph. Now, during the time of Uthman, Islam had spread to a lot of different lands, including a lot of non-Arab lands. The Caliphate had control over a huge amount of land with a lot of non-Arabs. And the companions had spread throughout the lands. Now, a companion would have learned the Quran from the Prophet in one recitation, because we have multiple recitations of the Quran. You don't really have to understand exactly what that means. Just understand that there are differences between them, but all of them go back to the Prophet. Okay? So a companion
So
would have
different accents, in other words.
Not exactly accents. There are different ways of reciting certain words, in addition to some differences of wording as well, differences of words. But
but I thought it was perfectly preserved, right?
Yes, and it is. All of these are perfectly preserved back to the Prophet. Okay, so very quickly, just it makes it easier to understand. The Prophet ﷺ, he received the Quran in 7 ahruf. What are the ahruf? They are different dialects of the Arabs, with also some differences in wording between them. Now, all of these 7 ahruf, all of the 7 ahruf were revealed by Allah to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? Now, the qira'at, or the recitations, are different combinations of these ahruf. So you can recite the entire Quran in one qira'ah, in one recitation, or the entire Quran in a different recitation. Okay? So one companion, so this is how they are different, but they are all preserved because they all come from the Prophet ﷺ. He recited all of them, the 10 recitations that we have today. He recited all of them. Now what happened is that a companion would have learned a recitation from the Prophet ﷺ, but not all of the 10. He learned 1, 2 maybe, right? Let's say he learned 1. And he went to somewhere during the time of Uthman, and he had students, and he would teach them that recitation. Another companion would have learned a different recitation from the Prophet ﷺ, and would teach his students during the time of Uthman a different recitation, the one that he learned. These students, when they would meet, they would find that they are reciting the Quran differently to each other. Each one would think that the other is making a mistake, when really they're both correct. They're just reciting different recitations. So in order to prevent the Muslims from fighting each other and from differing with each other, Uthman radiallahu anh, he decided to do a certain thing. He decided to make a compilation that could accommodate multiple recitations, so that the Muslims they can choose which recitation to recite in, and they know, okay, this person reciting differently is reciting another recitation. Okay. To do that, remember the copy that was with Hafsa, that was compiled during the time of Abu Bakr? Uthman asked Hafsa for that copy. And Hafsa gave that copy to Uthman, and that copy, which dated back to less than 3 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, was used to make this compilation. And the one in charge of the compilation was again Zayd ibn Thabit, the same person who was in charge during the time of Abu Bakr of compiling the Quran. So they made that compilation, and it was a text it was a skeletal text that did not have the diacritics of the Arabic language and did not have dots either, to be able to accommodate multiple recitations. And they made multiple copies of that, and they sent it throughout the land. They sent the copy throughout the land, and Uthman kept one with him as well. And anything, and this is where we get to the burning part, anything that was not checked and verified by the companions themselves who had memorized the Quran, who had made that copy, anything that was not checked and verified by them was burned. So it's not an argument against the preservation of the Quran, it's an argument for the preservation of the Quran. Imagine if the disciples of Jesus, peace be upon him, had all memorized, let's say, the 4 Gospels, and they gathered together and they checked and verified a certain copy, and they made multiple copies of that, checked by and approved by the disciples themselves. And anything that was not approved by the disciples of Jesus personally was just burned, and the only thing left was the copies approved by the disciples personally. You would say that's a pretty strong argument for preservation, not against.
I would say that there was a problem that they made something that was false in the first place.
Not false, because what was burned, what was it that was burned? It was not corruptions and whatnot, it was personal copies of the companions. That's what was burned. It was personal copies.
And what do you mean by personal copies?
Yeah, personal manuscripts that they themselves wrote on. So the companions, if they learned the Quran, let's say, they wrote it in a personal copy that they kept with them at home, that they would read from or they would learn from, etc. Okay? And they would perhaps, if you have that copy, and we do this today even, if you're studying the Quran on that copy, you will write your own notes. Maybe you will write, for example, before Surah 9, don't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You will write your notes, right? These copies, there was no need for them, because khalas, they had what was checked and approved by the companions themselves, by multiple memorizers, and by scribes of the Prophet himself, alayhi salatu wassalam. So these personal copies, it would actually be better if they were burned, so that no one, for example, thinks that a note of a companion on his personal copy is a verse of the Quran, or so that no one thinks that an abrogated verse that is present in a personal copy is still to be recited, etc. Point is, What was not checked by the companions was burned, and that's it. That's the end of the story.
Yeah, but I would say it's a problem that in the first place, like they wrote something down that didn't align with what you guys perceive as scripture.
Who said they wrote something that didn't align with it?
Well, that's what I've understood from the story, that they wrote down what they like
They wrote down
basically,
what they learned.
yeah.
Junior, these are companions we're talking about. They wrote down what they learned either from other companions or from the Prophet ﷺ himself. No one said that they wrote down things that disagreed with the Uthmanic manuscript. What we said is that now, since they had this copy, the standardized copy that was checked and approved by scribes of the Prophet and memorizers of the Quran and companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and they made multiple copies of that, خلاص, anything else that was not checked, burn it. No need for it. Burn it. I didn't say they had things written that contradicted it. No, I said these copies were not checked and verified by the companions and the scribes. So just burn it since we have something better. Is it clear now?
Well, that's your claim. I'll have to look into it.
Sure. It is my claim, sure, and maybe you can look it up yourself on your own time. The whole thing, it's in different separate ahadith. Yeah, but basically that's the whole point of the story, that no corruption happened. It's just they decided to unite the different people on one copy, checked and verified by the companions. Do you have other questions about Islam before I move to someone else?
Well, I mean, depends if you want to talk about, but I would say I'm still not really convinced that Muhammad was a prophet.
Okay. I don't really have any other guests right now, so I can entertain that. Just give me a second to mute some stupid people in the chat.
Well, speaking of that, actually, I was muted at first for saying like history contradicts Islam. How come?
I didn't notice that. Okay, Abdelaziz, Jazakallahu khaira. Yeah, I did not notice you being muted. Okay. So how do we prove that Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam is a prophet? By testing him, by testing his claim. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam made the claim that an angel visited him in a cave and he received the Quran from God and he is a prophet. Correct? Now, what are from a neutral perspective, what are the possible scenarios?
That he's a liar.
That he's a liar. That he's crazy. He thinks he's a prophet, but he's actually hallucinating. That he was deceived by a demon who pretended to be an angel. Or that he's telling the truth. There isn't really a fifth possibility. If you can think
well,
of
not
one
that we can think of right now.
Yeah, and I've thought about it for a long time. If you can think of one, feel free to tell me about it. But right now, there isn't really one that comes to mind. So if we go by process of elimination and we disprove the first three, the only one left is the fourth one, which means that he has to be telling the truth. So we do that. First of all, was he a liar? Or I'll tell you what, which one do you think was most likely to be the case?
That he received false revelation.
From a demon? Okay.
Well, it could be a demon or like what it is exactly doesn't matter. Just false revelation.
From an evil being?
Sure.
Or is he lying?
Well, like it could be both. Doesn't really matter to me.
Well, no, because if he's lying, then he's making things up. Or is he receiving this
Well,
Quran
lying
from an
and
evil?
false revelation is kind of the same thing.
But that's why I'm asking these clarified questions. So look, if he's lying, he's making things up. Or either he's lying, he's making things up, or he's crazy, or he's being deceived by an evil being, a demon, an evil spirit, whatever. He's being deceived, and that thing is giving him the Quran. He thinks he's a prophet. He thinks he's receiving it from an angel, but actually it's someone deceiving him, or he's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So خلاص, no problem. We'll go over all the three. First of all, was he lying? What motive would he have to lie? And when we say was he lying, we mean was he making things up? Was he intentionally pretending to be a prophet? That's what we mean.
Yeah.
What would be his motive to lie?
To have multiple wives more than his own religion allows, for example.
The religion of the Arabs didn't have a limit for how many wives you can have.
Yeah, but the other, like Judaism and what's it called?
Christianity.
Yeah, they say it's only one wife.
Yeah, but he was not a Jew or a Christian. Even if we grant that.
Yeah.
He was not a Jew or a Christian. So if he wanted multiple wives,
Well, I would say
he could just be an idol-worshipping Arab, and then he will have no limits for how many wives he can. But Islam actually put a limit on him.
Which he broke.
Said, huh? No, I'm not talking about the 4 wives. The 4 wives was not a limit for him. Islam put a limit on him that after he had the total number of wives that he had, I don't remember if it was 11 or 13, but after he had that, he was not allowed to marry anyone else. He was not allowed any more wives. So he actually put a limit on himself. Not he put a limit on himself, but Islam put a limit on him. But if he had been an idol-worshipping Arab, there would be no limit for how many wives he can have. So no, you cannot say, oh, he pretended to be a prophet to get multiple wives more than his religion allowed him. Because he actually limited himself if he made up Islam.
I mean, did he though, actually? Like, from what I know, like, any babe that he saw, just married them straight up.
No, that's just straight up false.
Well, basically.
Yeah, no, not even basically. That's just straight up false. But but even if we go through all of that, Junior, even if we grant that, again, the idol-worshipping religion of the Arabs did not have a limit for how many wives. So that cannot be, you cannot say, oh, he pretended to be a prophet to have multiple wives, because he could already have as many wives as he wanted if he was an idol-worshipping Arab. So what else could be his motive?
Praise. Like, you don't think you have a social status? Because he was a prophet. Before that, he was basically a nobody.
Not really. So you're saying status. He wanted status.
Yeah, okay. Basically.
Wealth, power. Can you think of that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So woman, status, wealth, power. We already talked about the woman part. Now, status and praise. The Prophet ﷺ, before prophethood, he was already praised very much and had status. He was very well loved among his people, among the tribe of Quraysh, and to the point that he was never doubted when he would make a claim, and he was known as As-Sadiq Al-Amin, the honest and the trustworthy. Moreover, the different leaders...
the praise and like seemed as were trustworthy. Wasn't that like just because he was a tradesman?
No, because in general he was never known to tell a lie. Regardless of the reason, right now we're talking about whether he already had the status before prophethood or not.
All right, but let me ask you this: do you think he got more or less?
Junior,
do you think he got more or less? Yeah.
Junior, believe me, anything you ask me will very likely be something I've heard before. I'm going to address everything before you even ask. I've made this argument so many times already, okay? It's a bit of a long one, so I'm going to talk a lot. I need your patience with me, okay?
All right.
Thank you very much. Now, Status and praise. As I said, he was already praised before prophethood very much. He was very well loved among his people, which, by the way, we're talking about thousands of people. The tribe of Quraysh was a very big tribe, and it was the most powerful tribe in Arabia and the chief tribe in Arabia, to the point that he was known as As-Sadiq al-Amin, the honest and the trustworthy. He was just called that by the people because they trusted him so much. He was never known to tell a lie. Moreover, once the leaders, different leaders of the Arabs, they wanted to, while they were rebuilding the Kaaba, which they used to view as very important, it was a sacred place for them. The black stone, they differed on who would put it in the Kaaba. They started differing between themselves. I want to put it. No, I want to put it. So they decided, okay, the next person that passes through that entrance, he will decide who puts the black stone. The Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was the one who passed, and this is before prophethood. He was the one who passed, and when he passed, they were extremely happy, all of them, because they said to themselves, this is the best person who could have passed, because he was very well liked and he was seen as a wise and trustworthy man. And they said to themselves, or they had this attitude towards him, that whatever judgment you come with, we will accept it. And then he said, it's a bit unrelated what happened next, but he basically he gave them a judgment that made all of them happy. Now, the point is, he was very respected and very well loved. Moreover, his clan within the tribe. So I mentioned earlier that the tribe of Quraysh, his tribe, was the most powerful tribe in Mecca. It was one of the centers of trade among the Arabs. They would come to Mecca for their trade. They would also come to Mecca for their pilgrimage. So the tribe had religious. It was respected by the Arab tribes because it had, they were seen as custodians of the Kaaba, which had religious significance to the Arabs. The tribe was the most powerful tribe. His clan within the tribe was one of the chief clans of the tribe itself. His grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, was the chief of Mecca. He was the chief of the most powerful tribe. His uncle, Abu Talib, who raised him, who was like a father to him, was also one of the chiefs. He was also one of the chiefs. And his uncles in general, his uncles were custodians of the Kaaba, which was the most sacred place in Mecca to the Arabs even before Islam. So he had the status. Moreover, he was married to one of the most successful businesswomen in Mecca. So he had the status, and he also had money. He had the wealth. And he had the power as actually, we'll get to the power in a bit. So he had the status, he had the money, he was very much praised, he was very well liked. Now, this ties a little bit into the wealth. Did he want wealth? So he had the wealth, but then after his prophethood, after he moved to Medina, and he got a lot of wealth, he got a lot of income because of the booty of the wars. Did he use it the way someone who's after wealth would? Actually, if you read about him, the crescent moon, after the crescent moon would pass, and the family of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam would not light a fire in the house to cook food. And whenever they would have more than one meal a day, the second meal would be dates. And the month after a month would pass, and they were eating nothing but dates and water. Okay, but where's all the money going then? And they're living like very poor people. Where's all the money going that's coming to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? That money was being donated by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam for the benefit of the Muslims. He was described by his companions as being the most generous of people, to the point that one time a big amount of money came to him from Bahrain, and it was described as the greatest amount of money they had ever seen up to that point. The Prophet ﷺ stood up and prayed, and he did not even look at the money. He stood up and prayed, then he came back to it, and he started distributing it among the people. And he did not get up until the entirety of the money was distributed, leaving nothing to himself. Even though he did make a lot of money, a lot of the booty of war would go to him, but he would donate that wealth again and again. He would leave almost nothing to himself.
I mean, that just describes modern day billionaires not having Gucci or whatever. They just buy simple t-shirts and whatever.
Yes, but the difference is that if you look at their bank account, you will find billions and billions there, which is why they're called billionaires. But the Prophet ﷺ did not have, he almost had nothing for him. He almost had nothing allocated to him. He would take the money, he would get the money, his income, and then most of that, the vast majority, would be just immediately donated or put in the what do you call it? That place where you put the money of the state to use it for the sake of the people. It would be put in that, leaving barely anything for himself. So that's not, the point is, that's not how someone who's after money acts. Someone who's after money either enjoys it or, the treasury. Someone who's after money either enjoys it or at least hoards it. Just keeps it somewhere. It's sitting there, he's not doing anything with it, but he keeps it somewhere. The Prophet did neither. He neither enjoyed that money he was getting, nor did he even hoard it. He just donated it to other people. So this is not someone who was after wealth. Okay, was he after power? Did he want leadership and power? It's kind of the same as status, really. Yani he was already very well respected. People would trust his judgment.
But do you think he got more or less status after supposedly becoming a prophet?
Of course he got more status after becoming a prophet, but after what? After what? The first 13 years of his prophethood were a night. I don't know if I can say they were a nightmare, but he suffered a lot through them, the point is. He had less, in the first 13 years of being a prophet, he had less power than he had before prophethood, much less. His uncle was against him, his grandfather was dead, his uncle who was protecting him also died during that period. People who previously respected him and loved him and looked up to his judgment and happily followed his judgment were now mocking him and accusing him of being a liar and a sorcerer. He had way less power than he had for the first 13 years. He went through a...
But that sounds like family problems. That sounds like family problems, not necessarily... Like, that's not necessarily a problem. Like, do you not think that, like, for example, Stalin, when he did messed up stuff in Europe, that his relationship got worse with his real family?
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about mere family problems. I'm talking about him going from having a whole lot of people who would listen to him happily to him having only a handful of followers, a few followers during the first 13 years, and many of them being tortured, many of them being unalived, him and his own clan being boycotted for 3 years, leading many of them to almost starve to death. The remains of a dead camel being thrown on him on his back while he was praying, heavy remains. People trying to assassinate him, people trying to choke him, and all of this is only within the 13 years when he's in Mecca. He doesn't yet have power. He's not yet the head of a state. He doesn't have an army under his command. He doesn't have a booty of war that is coming to him. He has none of that. He just has a few people, by the end of it, a few dozens of people who are following him. That's it. And then there's thousands of people around them who are making their lives a nightmare. So he actually lost a lot. He lost a whole lot for his prophethood, during his prophethood. He lost a lot of power. He lost a lot of status among most of the people. So that is not someone who's after status. And even after that, even when he went to Medina and he got the status and he got the power, how did he act with it? Was he arrogant? Was he boastful? Was he a show-off? Actually, he was one of the most humble of people. For example, when in his mosque in Medina, after he became the head of state, after he had an army under his command and many people willing to die for him, when he would sit among his companions, he would sit just like he was one of them. Yani he didn't have a special place, meaning, to the point that someone who came looking for him, he wouldn't know which one he was until he asked about him. It got to a point where the companions themselves, they requested, let us make a special place for you to sit in, so that the people who come looking for you, they can know, okay, this is the Prophet. They can tell you apart from us. So after that, what did the Prophet ﷺ have to sit on? Did he have a throne? Did he have a fancy chair? No. He had a bit of like a small hill of soil. It's not exactly a hill, it's very small, yani, like a place for him to sit in, but you get what I mean. A bit of a higher place of soil for him to sit on. That's what he got. He didn't get a throne, he didn't get a chair, even though yani, all he had to do was ask, and they would get it for him. This is not someone who's after power or someone who's after status. And again, what I mentioned earlier about his life, how he was not very much after money, it adds to this point as well. There's also, I don't want to go on for very long, but you get the point. He didn't act like someone who was after status. He didn't act like someone who was after power. He did not act like someone who was after money.
I would disagree.
Or woman.
I would disagree.
Of course you're gonna disagree. I don't expect you to agree. That's not really my problem. What I'm saying is I'm simply telling you what Islam says. Whether you agree with not or not, that's your own choice at the end. And when he was in Mecca, when he was going through all that suffering, when he was going through all that torture, they came to him and they offered him these things on a silver platter. There was a stage in Mecca where the disbelievers were like, at least try to negotiate with him. The guy is causing us a lot of headaches. Let's try to negotiate with him. Give him what he wants. Maybe then he will leave us alone. They came to him. One of the chiefs of Mecca came to him and he said, look, if you want women, we will give you the most beautiful of our women. If you want kingship, we will make you our king. If you're after leadership, we will make you our leader. If you are afflicted by some kind of possession or something, we will bring you our best doctors. We will give you whatever you want. Just stop calling people to Islam. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Everything you claim he wants was presented to him on a silver platter. He, without any hesitation, refused. He recited some Quran to the man, and he also said that I am unable to leave this mission as you are unable to bring me part of the sun. Completely refused. And he chose to instead continue going through the torture. Continue going through the suffering. That went on for years and years and years. So how can you say that this is someone who had these motives when everything we look at regarding his life says the opposite? And we're only talking about the motives right now. There's still much more to talk about.
Well, I would say one instance of him abusing power is like him seeing his adopted son's wife heavily revealed, and like next day magically, oh yeah, by the way, you can adoption, it's not valid anymore, and you can marry your adopted son's wives, like after magically getting it
that's
sent by Allah.
Yeah, that's not at all what happened. The narration,
what happened?
First of all, I'll tell you. First of all, the narration you're referring to when talking about him allegedly seeing her naked, that's not an authentic narration. That's a weak or even fabricated narration. It's mentioned in Tarikh al-Tabari, and if you read the introduction of the book,
I'm pretty sure it's Hassan.
Not even Hassan. It's either da'if or mawdu', so either weak or fabricated. It's just not authentic. It's mentioned in Tarikh al-Tabari, and if you read the introduction of the book, al-Tabari himself, the author of the book, he mentions that in this book he has just compiled narrations. He didn't take the time to discern the authentic from the inauthentic. Now, that narration is a weak narration, and you can check yourself. It's not authentic. However, it is true that he did marry his wife's son. It's just that part about him seeing her and falling in love with her, that's not authentic. Now, if you read the Quran, actually he told Zayd, his adopted son, he told Zayd to stay married to her. So it's the opposite of what you said. He didn't get him to. He didn't say, "Oh Allah." Just a second. He didn't say, "Oh Allah revealed that you." He didn't. How do I say this? He very clearly did not want the marriage to end. He said
I mean,
to,
that's what he said, though. Like, it could
what?
have easily been that, yeah, he said that in public so he isn't shamed, and then, he magically gets revelation that, oh, yeah, you should.
If you want to make that claim, the burden of proof is on you. You have to prove that, okay, he said that to him so that for the reason that you said, and then da. Because remember, you're saying, okay, he did this, he abused his power by doing this. So you're making an accusation against him. But when we look at his behavior, first of all, at face value, we see him saying to Zayd, don't divorce your wife. But then the divorce happened anyway, not by order of the Prophet ﷺ, not even because of the revelation of Allah. But Zayd and Zainab, they had problems in their marriage. It was not a happy marriage. Just give me a second.
So what?
Just one moment. I need to make someone mod so they can help me moderate the chat. Okay, Dr. Dean, your mod. Jazak. Thank you, Habib. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, they had problems in their marriage and they were about to get divorced. The Prophet ﷺ told him to stay married to her, but the divorce happened anyway, just because they were having problems. But the Prophet ﷺ knew that from revelation from Allah that he was going to marry Zainab. And indeed, he did marry her after they got divorced. So where is the abuse of power here? The Prophet ﷺ, he told them to stay married. They themselves, on their own, they got divorced without interference of the Prophet ﷺ, because their marriage was not really a very happy marriage. And then she's a woman who was married to someone who's not even related to the Prophet ﷺ, and he married her. What's the problem? There is nothing wrong with that here.
Well, the problem is that he made adoption invalid in Islam.
Yeah, so what?
Yeah, I would say that's evil, actually, to disallow something good.
That's now a different point from abusing his power.
Yeah?
That's a different point. So we're done with the abusing his power accusation.
No, not really. I mean, that ties to abusing power, like making something good not allowed, so they can do...
this quickly. Yeah, no problem. The answer is very simple to this. Adoption is haram in Islam, but taking care of an orphan or someone who's lost his parents is not haram. It's actually very much encouraged. The Prophet ﷺ said that the one who becomes a guardian of an orphan and himself, the Prophet himself, there will be like this on the Day of Judgment or in Jannah. So taking care of the orphan is very, very, very encouraged in Islam. What is haram in adoption is giving the orphan or the person who's lost their parents your lineage or giving them your last name. That is haram because that is unjust. Islam came to protect 5 things. Out of these 5,
why is that unjust?
Yeah, because first of all, you're depriving them of their true lineage. You're depriving them of the true lineage, which is the right of their parents. It is the right of their biological parents over their child to maintain their lineage going through to him. I hope.
What do you mean? But what do you exactly mean by maintain their lineage?
This is what I'm trying to convey, that it is the right of the child himself and of his parents for someone else to not pretend that he has a different lineage. So for him to have the same last name as his biological parents and not a different last name of someone who is not related to him. You understand what I'm saying?
But you can arrange papers so that like for example, if you change your last name.
At the end of the day, that doesn't change you can write papers. That doesn't change the fact that he's not actually your son. And then there is another form of injustice involved, that if you do that, then he will inherit from you. But he doesn't have the right to inherit from you. He's not your son or your daughter. She's not your daughter, he's not your son. Now you become unjust to your biological children if you give your adopted son part of the inheritance when he doesn't deserve it. He's not your son. He's a person who is not related to you, whom you just called your son when he's not actually your son. So that is injustice involved in adoption that Islam did away with, and it preserved the just and merciful parts, which is taking care of this person, giving him clothing and shelter and food, and helping him get married, and is helping him live a healthy life.
And like inheritance, like, you know, at the end of the day, the father can do whatever he wants with the inheritance he's gonna give. So
we don't believe
I mean,
that.
if
we don't believe that in Islam. The father cannot just do whatever he wants with the inheritance. No, his children have a right over him regarding the inheritance. His children, each of them is entitled to a certain amount of the inheritance. And he does not have the right to deprive the children of some of that amount that they are entitled to and give it to someone who's not actually his child, he's just calling him his child. That's unjust to his real child.
And I would say, you know, like I mean, this is just where we just don't agree. I mean, I can't see how it's unjust.
Sure. No problem, Junior. If we don't agree, cause no problem. We don't need to repeat the same thing 10 times. Now, going back to the original topic, we talked about the motive. Did they have the motive to lie? I think I gave a very detailed and long explanation of why he couldn't have had the motive to lie. Another part is...
Well, I'll have to read the hadith to confirm that.
Sure. Look, don't take anything I say, just take my word for it. You can look up anything you want after that yourself. You can ask me about references, etc. If I'm going to look up the reference, the thing is, if I look up the reference for each thing, it's going to take me 3 hours to finish the conversation with you. Now, which is why I'm going without references. What else? Yes, did he have the ability to lie? He didn't have the ability to lie because for him to make up the Quran himself, he would have needed to be educated on the books of the Christians and the Jews, including Apocrypha books and the Talmud as well.
And he wasn't.
Of the Jews.
You guys, there's a chapter in the Quran that says that Mary is a part of the Trinity.
Yeah, no, there is not a chapter in the Quran that says that. Look, Junior, if you're going to start bringing in random arguments, we're going to stop.
Okay,
because I need you to stay focused, my guy. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about a verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, in the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah asks Isa alayhi salam if he orders the people to take him and his wife as two gods alongside Allah. That is not saying she was part of the Trinity. Now, can you stop bringing in random arguments and that I can move on with the topic?
Okay, but can we talk about that part then?
Okay, very quickly. None of that verse does not at all say she was part of the Trinity, but you do have Christians who take her as a god alongside Allah. For example, the Catholics who worship her, that is seen as taking her a god in Islam. They worship Mary, they ask her for protection. Hold on. I don't want to take a long time in this. They worship her, they ask her for protection, they ask her to intercede for them even though she is dead. They make dua to her, they supplicate to her. From an Islamic perspective, that is taking her as a goddess. Okay, we can move on now. Now, I don't want to take very long, man. We're still in the beginning.
Yeah, but Catholics, they don't take her as a god.
The Catholics, they say we don't worship her. The Catholics say we don't worship her. From an Islamic perspective, they are worshiping her and they are taking her as a goddess from an Islamic perspective. Okay? Now, please stop bringing in random arguments. I want to be done with this already. We've been talking about this for a very long time. Now, did he have the ability to lie? As I said, he needed to be educated on what the Christians and the Jews had with them, as well as the Talmud of the Jews, the Apocrypha books of the Christians, etc., etc.
Wait.
He couldn't have done that. As you know, the Quran, it mentions a lot of stories about the prophets. Now, when you look at his life, he didn't really have that. There were no.
He was a trader, wasn't he?
He was a trader, but his trade was mostly what is the word? He was a merchant later on in his life, and it was mostly limited within the idol-worshipping Arabs. He barely, he only went to the Levant where there were people of the book. He only went there twice in his entire life, and once was when he was a child. He was only 12 years old or something like that. And he didn't even make it to the Levant, to the entirety of the Levant back then, because they were persuaded to go back by another man, by a man called Buhaira. And then the second time, he went there just another second time, and that's it. So nowhere near enough for him to learn about their religions and memorize that information and then regurgitate it over 23 years. Now, for him to do that, for him to be educated and learn all of these things, he would have needed, while he's in Mecca, he would have needed to go to where the Jews were, which was in Medina, or Khaybar, which is near Medina. And then from Mecca to Medina, and from Medina to Mecca, within a day, so that people don't notice his absence and get suspicious, and without being noticed by the Jews themselves, so that they cannot say, oh, you're learning from us, and without being noticed by the Arabs either, and without being noticed by his own followers, who spent a lot, almost every moment of every day with him. And he would have to go from Mecca to Medina, from Medina to Mecca within a day, which was impossible. From Mecca to Medina on foot, that's 4 days. On an animal, it would be like, what, 2 days maybe. It would be physically impossible. And because there were no Jews in Medina. And then he would need to memorize all of that information, keep it in his heart, and then regurgitate it over 23 years when he didn't even have access to it. He was unlettered, he couldn't read, so he couldn't have had a library with him, a secret library that he was hiding somewhere. He needed a teacher. And for that teacher, he would only find him in somewhere where the Jews were. And then he would need to keep that teacher a secret for 23 years, which, if you are the teacher, why would you even stay secret like that? You're getting nothing from it. You're just teaching this guy and he's getting all of the credit. You're getting nothing from it. Some people say, oh, but what about Waraqa ibn Nawfal? Yeah, the guy he only met once, and then who died. The guy who died a few days after revelation first came to him. Waraqa ibn Nawfal, he died a few days after the story of the angel coming to him in the cave. So he couldn't have been the source of his information. No, so he didn't even have, even if he wanted to lie and make up the Quran, he didn't have the ability to do that. So he couldn't have been a liar. Okay, what about being crazy, hallucinating? That's even more ridiculous than claiming he was a liar, because now, for him to be crazy and still come with the Quran and think he's from God, when you say he's crazy, you're basically saying, oh, he had a teacher, he learned it from somewhere, the information, but he didn't know that he was learning it from someone. He thought it was coming from God. He went from Mecca to Medina, from Medina to Mecca within a day somehow, but he didn't even realize he was doing that. And he made up the Quran, but he thought the Quran was coming from God, using all that information, which he didn't even know he had. That's, I think it's very clear how that is ridiculous. But in addition to that, the people who were closest to him, the people who spent a lot of time with him, when they talk about him, we don't see the description of someone who is afflicted by madness or someone who is afflicted by hallucinations. In fact, the companions themselves would feel sometimes the effect of revelation. For example, there is a hadith, an authentic hadith, that talks about a companion who had his leg under the leg of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ received revelation while in that state, and the companion says that the Prophet ﷺ became so heavy that he felt his leg was going to fracture or break or get cut off. So the companions themselves were feeling the weight of the revelation or the effect of revelation. We also have narrations of companions seeing the angels. For example, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he saw the angels Jibril and Gabriel and Michael fighting alongside the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in one of the battles. It was either the Battle of Uhud or the Battle of Badr. There is also a narration of the angel Gabriel, peace be upon him, coming to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and asking him questions while he was sitting among his companions, including Umar ibn al-Khattab. There are multiple narrations of the companions witnessing the angels and feeling the effect of revelation. So to say he was crazy, that's even more ridiculous than saying he was lying. And then, okay, was he deceived by a demon? Or was he deceived by an evil being? Okay, Why would a demon come to a man and tell him, go to these idol-worshipping Arabs and invite them to monotheism? Why would he do that? These Arabs, the idol-worshipping Arabs, they were already worshipping 360 idols. They were already walking around the Kaaba naked. They were already burying their women alive or burying their daughters alive. They were already doing a lot of evil. He had them in his pocket. Satan had them in his pocket. Why would he come to this man and tell him, go to these people and tell them, stop worshipping idols, come to the worship of one God?
Well, they could do it to, or the demon could do it to make it easier for Christians and Jews to, who are monotheists. They could basically to abandon that to a religions that's somewhat similar.
How would it make it easier?
Well, do you think a Jew has an easier time to worship like 30 different gods or one God if he was to change religion?
The Jew is already a disbeliever, isn't he?
But he's not a polytheist.
Yeah, but he's already a disbeliever. When he dies, he's going to go to hell forever, according to both So Satan already has the Jew in his pocket.
Yeah, but it's not just about the Jews. It's also about the Christians.
The Christians. So what about the Christians?
Yeah, we don't accept your revelation.
Yeah, but
because it contradicts revelations that we already have.
You're saying, just a second. You're saying basically, if I understood correctly, you're saying Satan came to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and he sent him to idol worshippers with Islam, inviting them to monotheism, so that it would be easier for the Christians to follow a false religion that is monotheistic.
Well, eventually, not initially, but eventually. Do you think that Satan never has long-term plans?
No, I understand your point. Your point. And this is why that doesn't make sense. For a few reasons. We will start with the simpler one. Why didn't Satan send a man to the Christians?
Well, he did indirectly.
So basically you're saying Satan was playing the long game. Maybe he was gathering a force. He wanted to first use the idol worshippers to gather a following that he could then use against the Christians.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't make sense for a few reasons. First of all, if his goal is eventually the Christians, it's still a fact that he's starting with the idol worshippers. Now, for the plan to come about, he needs to convince the idol worshippers, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you come to these people, you yourself, as you yourself already implied or said, you need the religion to be very similar to their religion. Mm-hmm. Now, when we look at the differences between Islam and the idol-worshipping Arabs' religion, we find that there were small differences that were, if it was from Satan, there just wasn't a point to them. Small, unnecessary differences that would just increase the hostility of the idol-worshipping Arabs and make them less likely to accept Islam. Like what? For example, the Arabs, they believed that the angels are females. I think some Christians also believe that, don't they? Or am I wrong about
that? I don't know. I don't believe that angels have genders to begin with.
Okay, so the Arabs, the idol-worshipping Arabs, believed the angels are female. Islam, in the Quran, you find verses that talk against that specifically, very harshly against that as well. And Islam came and rejected that idea and made it kufr, disbelief. It takes you out of the fold of Islam to believe that the angels are female. The Arabs also believed that when a person dies, or when a person is unalived, I should say, an owl comes out of their head and starts saying, give me to drink, until the person who unalived that person is unalived themselves. Until the dead person is avenged, basically. Islam rejects that idea. The idol-worshipping Arabs used to believe that there is a type of being called the ghoul, who, when you're walking in the wilderness, he will try to make you lose your way, make you get lost, basically. Islam rejects all of these. There are also other beliefs that they had that were, And from a disbeliever's perspective, he would see them as quite the innocent beliefs, like believing in a certain type of bird, and then Islam rejected that. These are small. If it was from Satan, these would be unnecessary differences that just made them more hostile and less likely to accept Islam. So why would he add these differences in? It would go against his plan of gathering a force.
I mean, we have. I would say that it doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the day, like if you accept a whole new religion in the first place, then like you're gonna deconstruct your current faith. So it doesn't really matter. Not to mention, if his goal is to get to the Christians, I mean, Islam and Christianity is very differently. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Different. Right. So this contradicts the point you made earlier, because you are the one who said, Junior, that he wanted to trick the Christians into join. He wanted to make it easier for them to join Islam by making it
like my point is like that he wanted to make it but wait, he wanted to make it similar enough to Islam.
Yeah, but the thing is, if he wanted that, then he also needs to make it similar enough for the idol worshipping Arabs to join it in the first place, to gather that force. But he made it very, very, very different. If he was the one who made it, he made it very different, adding in these differences that I mentioned that are unnecessary if it's coming from Satan. Like, they're just differences, needless differences that just made the Arabs even more hostile to Islam and less likely to accept it. In addition to that, a big reason why the Arabs of Quraysh at first did not accept Islam was because many of them did not want to follow a specific clan in the tribe. There were multiple clans in the tribe that all had powers, that all had power within the tribe, all had chiefs of the tribe. And people from other clans, they did not want to follow the clan of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam alone. One of the biggest enemies of Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, Abu Jahl, he said that he believes that he knows Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam is a prophet. And Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam has never told a lie. This is what he said. But their clan and Muhammad's clan competed with each other so much in different things until they became like this. They became equal. So if the clan of Muhammad says among us is a prophet, then how can our clan reach them after that? That's what he said. So it was that kind of politics thing. So if it was from Satan, and Satan's main concern was simply gathering a force under a united leadership to then march against the Christians and either join and either add them to Islam or subjugate them, then if Satan was doing that, then he would go to these different people and just tell them, you're a prophet and you're also a prophet. Now work together. They will follow them and act together.
I mean, that's the easier way to do it.
That's the easier way to do it. And on the other hand, instead, what we find is Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam being called the seal of the prophets, the final prophet, after whom there is no prophet. And we find him fighting against other people who called themselves prophets, one of whom even tried to form an alliance with him. Yeah. If I was Satan, I would say, go right ahead, work together. It makes it easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I would deal with it with basically, as I just said earlier, like making it harder to believe in a false religion doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have long-term plans. I would even say that it's easier to convert like polytheists rather than monotheists. Would you agree with me on that? No?
Depends. But how does that deal with my question? Did you understand the question I was asking you?
Well, your point was basically like, oh, you're making it harder to believe in it because it goes against pagan Arab tradition, whatever. My point is,
So what?
No, that's not my point. The point I brought is that if Islam was from Satan and he just wanted to gather this force, to have a following and to gather power, then why make Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam the only prophet when he knew for a fact that most of the people did not follow him, most of the people in Quraysh, in Mecca, they did not follow him because they did not want to follow a specific clan in the tribe regarding the chiefs, and regarding the followers of these chiefs, they trusted their own chiefs. So if Islam was from Satan and he wanted to gather a following, he's faced with that problem. Okay, what is the solution to that problem? Go to these other chiefs, tell them you are also prophets, and have them work together. Now they will have that following, and it's much easier. It's much easier. Instead, we find Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam insisting that he's the only prophet and the final prophet, which caused him to get kicked out of Mecca, him and his followers, and have to seek refuge in Medina. So how do you deal with that? Why didn't Satan go to
Satan could be working for long term, not necessarily during Muhammad's lifetime. I mean, Satan's plan, like, it doesn't matter if it takes 10 years or 1,000 years just to deceive the whole world.
If he goes to these people, that doesn't contradict that. He can still be playing the long game and still go to multiple people and tell them you are all prophets, now work together. It wouldn't even be something strange to the Christians because there is a precedent of multiple prophets working together. For example,
Jesus being the final.
Well, no, but we'll get to that. Anyway, if you believe that he's the final prophet, then it doesn't make a difference whether Muhammad is the only prophet or Muhammad and someone else is also a prophet. But
yes,
what I'm saying, my guy, this is getting tiring. What I'm saying is that if Satan wanted an easy following, to gain a following to further his plans for the long game, he would go to multiple people and tell them you are all prophets, now work together. And that wouldn't even be strange to the Christians because there's a precedent for that. For example, Moses and Aaron, they were both prophets, they worked together. Zechariah and Yahya, John the Baptist. Even after Jesus, peace be upon him, you said he was the final prophet, but the New Testament actually talks about prophets after Jesus, peace be upon him. It says there were prophets after him. If you read the book of Acts, you will find
that. But they all point to the gospel. Prophecy biblically, talks about the gospel, not just whatever.
None of that deals with the question.
And that's not to mention that, like, just a moment ago, you said that Acts wasn't reliable.
Indeed, it's not. I'm just telling you that you said that Jesus is the final prophet. I'm telling you, according to your religion, he's not the final prophet. But that aside, the main question is, why didn't Satan go to these different people and tell them you are also prophets when he knew that the main reason why they were not following Islam was because they did not want to follow a different clan?
Well, because, like, having one single prophet rather than multiple different who can argue about theological stuff is better for long term.
Well, clearly not, as you can see from the fact that we have Moses and Aaron who were sent together.
But they sent the same message, and not to mention, Not to mention, I would highly doubt that Aaron was a prophet. Like, he was just repeating what Moses was saying. I mean, if you repeat what Muhammad said, does it mean that you're a prophet?
Yeah, if you're a prophet, you're a prophet. It doesn't matter if you. In fact, you would expect the prophets to have the same message. It would be weird if they didn't have the same message.
No, I'm saying, if you're repeating what Muhammad says, does it mean that you're a prophet?
No. But that doesn't have anything to do with the question. You keep bringing unrelated points. What I'm saying is that, look, I've said it 10 times already. I'm not going to repeat it 11 times. You said, maybe they would disagree on theological points. If they're getting their information from the same source, they're not going to disagree. If all of them are getting their information from Satan, they're not going to disagree.
I mean, that's not necessarily true. Just look at the Hindus.
Who told you that they got their information from Satan?
Well, I would say that any information that doesn't preach the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ is from Satan.
There's a difference between Satan whispering into your heart and having you do things, having you sin, and him presenting himself before you as an angel and telling you, directing you, do this, do that, do that. And the angel came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ multiple times. So what I am saying basically is that if Satan wanted a strong following, he could have went to multiple people, called them prophets, gathered them, and presented himself before them as an angel, pretended to be an angel, and told them such and such and such, given them like information, and have them work together. He could have done that. He didn't do that. If Islam was from him, he did not do that, which only made things way harder for Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And for 13 years, it seemed, for 13 years, from a neutral perspective, it seemed like Muhammad's message just was not going to succeed.
I mean, I would say like Satan doing something like that to us seems like unreasonable. I mean, doesn't really say anything. Like, would you say that you're smarter than Satan?
I don't know.
You don't know. You don't think that
I'm wiser than him? I'm wiser than him because I follow that. I'm wiser than Satan because I follow the true religion, while he was an arrogant loser who let his arrogance lead him to hell. But am I smarter than him? I don't know how smart he is.
I mean, I would say that you gotta be pretty smart to deceive billions of people. Don't you think?
Indeed,
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but like, when you look at the narrative, or when you look at the claim of Satan, when you look at the claim Satan deceived Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, you find a lot of stupid mistakes instead. You don't find intelligence there.
I mean, but being smart doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes.
Yeah, but being smart means that you at least make one smart decision. But we see stupidity after stupidity in that claim. There's 100 different things that don't add up that I already presented to you.
Well, you saying like, yeah, why didn't he just like unite everybody? So like, you know, the leader of each tribe is a prophet, whatever. I mean, it could have been that like, you know, one of the people of the tribes would just not accept them being a prophet, even if like supposedly God told them. He could say, no, I just want to continue with my idol worship. That's one possible explanation.
We read in the Quran, Allah says, أُنزِلَ عَلَيْهِ الذِّكْرُ مِنْ بَيْنِنَا. He talks about the disbelievers, saying what means, has the message been revealed to him out of all of us? And then, this is by the way in Surah 38, verse 8. And then if we go to Surah Al-Muddathir, which is Surah 74, verse 52, he says, بَلْ يُرِيدُ كُلُّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ أَنْ يُؤْتَى صُحُفًا مُنَشَّرَةً. Rather, every person among them desires that he would be given scriptures spread about. And when we see what the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, I give you the example of one of his biggest enemies, Abu Jahl. When he explained his reason for rejecting him, what did he say? He said because he didn't want to follow a prophet from the clan of Banu Hashim, which was the clan of the Prophet ﷺ. So we find these indications that they did want prophethood to be from them.
But that specific people, like have you heard of Jonah?
Specific people who had a lot of power, who were the chiefs of their own clans, which was why.
Yeah, but have you heard of Jonah?
Yes.
Yeah, he did not want to become a prophet initially.
We don't believe that.
All right. But like that's an example of it.
Sure. But even if we go with that, okay? Was Jonah someone who was power hungry?
Does that matter?
Of course it matters.
I mean, Moses initially, even Moses initially was skeptical to tell Pharaoh, like, yo, release my people.
I'll tell you why it matters. It matters a lot because Abu Jahl, the guy I told you about, he was so power hungry that was his reason why he did not follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, because he did not want to follow a clan other than his own, and he was the chief of his own clan. Now, if you come to these people and you offer them power, you think they're not going to take it? Why didn't Satan go to these people whom he knew? Why didn't Satan go to these people whom he knew why they were not following the prophet? They weren't following him because they thought that he was a liar. They were not following him, or they weren't not following him because they thought he was a liar. They were not following him because they didn't want to follow him. They didn't want to follow his clan. They wanted to be the leaders. Because they were before Islam, here's how they were thinking. They were thinking before Islam as idol worshippers, we are the chiefs of Mecca. We are the chiefs of Quraysh. We are the chiefs of the most respected tribe in Arabia. If we believe Islam, if we believe in Islam, we will go from being leaders to being followers. Okay, how do you deal with that problem if you're Satan? You come to these people and you make them leaders as well in Islam. Then they will follow Islam, and their followers, they will follow them. And now you have this force, and they're getting all the teachings from you. So you direct them however you want. And then you find the Christians, and that's it. There's also more to be said about this topic, but we've gone on for very, very long. I don't really want to go on for much longer.
I mean, I think it's better somebody let somebody else in.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Actually, I think I'm going to end the live. I have to go get something from the store. Maybe I will start again. I'll go live again maybe in half an hour or in an hour. Maybe. Not for sure. Don't quote me on that. But Junior, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
You're welcome to come back anytime.
Yes.